The name of my film is New York's Worst Landlords. We started this 3 years ago, so it's been a while now. Um, and basically, my two friends, Nick and Chris Libby, they had the idea of doing something on the landlord's watch list that comes out every year by the city advocate's office. And so I was, instantly interested in that idea. And we just sort of started trying to get interviews with any of the landlords on the list, and then at the same time going to their buildings and just sort of cold calling tenants and talking to them about their experience living in one of their buildings. And then we would talk to tenant advocates, and we sort of it was an education. We learned a lot as we went, you know. So we just started out wanting to make a film on the list, and then it kind of grew from there. And originally we were like, oh, maybe this will be like an 8 or 10 minute video. And then we just kept on going and following different stories and different leads. And there's this scene where I sort of confront the some of the landlords, at their office. And they were like, no, we don't want to be filmed. But we stayed there and kept talking to them and tried to get them to go on camera. And so the whole time I was sort of like, I'm sort of directing it and I edit it. And so when you're on screen, you're sort of calculating all these different things. Are we getting the shot? What are we going to do with this? Are we able to, we wanted an actual interview. And then when that didn't become clear, we had some sort of like stunts of like trying to give them an award, stuff like that. And so I'm just sort of like doing a checklist of making sure we're getting the shots. And then afterwards, the two guys I work with, Nick and Chris Libby, were just like very frazzled and nervous because they they're like threatening to call the cops, and like it's like it's a hard thing. We felt nervous about like putting in all honesty, sort of like in that situation when you're, human to human, you're like, are we being unfair to them almost, And so they were very frazzled by it. But afterwards, at the end, I was like, I think we got some good stuff, right? So it's like you're thinking of so much stuff, just trying to get the shots and what you need for your story, that you don't have time to really think about it. You just make sure you're getting everything, We just walked right in. It's like I've been sneaking into places my whole life. As a kid, we used to sneak into movie theaters. I grew up in LA, and we used to sneak into like the back lot at Universal Studios. I've snuck into a ton of places. The thing you do when you sneak into places, you just walk in like you're supposed to be there, and then if they do catch you at some point, then you just pretend like you have no clue where you are. Like, I don't know how I got in here. I'm looking for something else. Where'd I park my car? I don't know how I got here, but no one ever questioned us. I kind of dressed up or whatever. We had a camera. And so I think they assumed we were, I don't know what they assumed. We just sort of set the camera down and turned it on, like it was on a table, like it wasn't turned on. And I had a lavalier mic. And so, you saw, I just told people, I was just like, yeah, I have some rent stabilized. I have a bunch of my story was that I kind of inherited some buildings from my family, and so I'm like kind of new and trying to figure it out. And I told them I got these buildings with a lot of rent stabilized units, and I want to evict them. And no one batted an eye. They're just like, oh, great. Oh, well, we'd love to do business. They're like, where's your buildings? And I was just like, Williamsburg, Greenpoint, Bushwick, like all the, hip neighborhoods that have been gentrified for, years now. But so they just see dollar signs, and not one person was like, well, we don't want to, maybe you shouldn't think about evictions. There's other ways to run a building, So the whole time I was just like, I hope we're getting good audio, like I hope we're getting this. and no one questioned us. That's all my producers, Nick and Chris. They had some sort of connection somehow, and Nick emailed Letitia James' assistant like every week for a few months. And so he just stayed on top of it. And we had, the day we were planning to film with her, we had an extra camera. We had two good 4K cameras. And so we're on the way over, and they were like, something came up. Can we reschedule? And Nick was like, no, we can't. We're on our way. We've got the two cameras, you know what I'm saying? Like, and so I was like, darn, I guess we got to do another day. But he was very honest. Like, no, he's like, we're on the bridge. Like, we've got this camera, we've got all this rental equipment. So and then once we got there, they were so nice. She talked to us for like 2 hours or something, answered all our questions. And we had a lot of fun with each other. She was great. From LA, I've been in New York for, I need to figure this out. I came here in like 2006 or 7. So I don't know, that's 14 years or something like that. I don't know. So I've been here for a while. I'm a comedian, I went to, after college, I went to clown school. I've studied mime. So I've done a lot of like, sort of weird physical theater. In like improv, I did stand up for a while, but at a certain point, I started making these short sort of documentaries and stuff. And then I kind of sort of like would take the documentaries I was making and the comedy and sort of put them together and kind of host, being on camera with it and sort of like doing, experiential type things, exploring something, but then, doing it. I've just been sort of like combining those two for a while now. Everyone is, you get so frustrated and angry about so many different sort of political, everything that's happening. You know what I'm saying? So it's just a good way to sort of combine comedy with the things you also really care about and explore them in a very serious manner. My mom's also a journalist, so I have a little bit of that in me, obviously. So I didn't go to journalism school or whatever, but I'm sort of acting as a journalist in a lot of ways. I would like to keep exploring what I'd like to do is sort of explore this sort of like where we got now, like through inequality and sort of like the last 45 years of free market neoliberal capitalism, and how need to work a little bit on my elevator pitch for this, obviously, but just to sort of like how there's a few people at the top with all the money and most everyone else with not as much. And so there's a million different ways you can explore that. And so that's like the direction I want to go in, and still bringing the comedy, obviously, it's sort of like to explore real issues, but make it fun and entertaining so people will watch it and get engaged, but then also, learn about different things.
Now, as far as this film is concerned, what do you hope that people take away from this? Or have you learned anything about this?
I think it's like, on a small level, I think, to learn that like New York City tenants actually have a lot of rights compared to most other parts of the country, And so a lot of times we take for granted, like everyone's sort of afraid of their landlord, whether they're good or bad. You know what I'm saying? It's like, we pay them a lot of money, too much money every month. And their job is to provide us with a safe and comfortable place to live. So if they're not repairing things, it's like, that's your job. That's why I give you half my freaking paycheck every month is for you to do that, you know? So to realize that you have a lot of rights as a tenant, if you're not getting what you've done, talk to your neighbors, start a tenants association. There's a lot of places you can reach out to, like the Legal Aid Society, Riseboro, Los Surreys. There's a lot of different tenant advocate, organizations throughout the city, and they can pair you with a lawyer who can help you with things. And essentially, don't be afraid of your landlord. On a bigger level, though, it's like we need to sort of like rethink how we think about housing. Think of it more as a right, like healthcare. You know what I'm saying? How can we create more affordable housing? I think it was starting with Bloomberg. It was like they would let private developers build whatever they want, and they can do, as long as they do 10 or 20% units are affordable, which is not affordable because it takes all 5 boroughs into account. So Manhattan, you've got a few billionaires, and that inflates what affordable is. But what's affordable for people in Manhattan is not affordable for people in the South Bronx, which is, one of the poorest zip codes in the country. So 10 or 20% affordable is not enough. You know what I'm saying? We need to build a city where everyone can live. And I mean, I'm not from New York, but I do think that it's like, what does a city owe to the people it created? If you're born and raised here, if your family is here, you should be able to live here if you want, but it's for sale for whoever can afford it. Especially Manhattan, billionaires are across the world just buy up property to put their money into, and it's not a city for people. You know what I'm saying? A city needs to have everyone, not just a few wealthy people. So there's like a ton of policy and all that stuff on how you get into that, but I think like we got to stop taking for granted the fact that like, oh, everything's just too expensive. Like there are ways that we can start demanding to have affordable places to live in every city. Obviously, it's cities all across the country and the world. It's just like, it's too expensive. We have to figure out a way to solve this. I mean, in Berlin, they just said you can't raise rents for 2 or 3 years. They just said that. Can you imagine if that would happen in New York? The Redney, the real estate, they'd go berserk. They'd be like, that's unconstitutional, blah, blah. In Berlin, they're just like, whoa, let's slow down. Things are getting crazy. Let's not raise rents for 3 years. And people are like, okay, you could never do that here. And like, why not? They're like, people think too much faith in the free market. You know what I'm saying? You have to have some guaranteed housing for the most vulnerable people. We want people to be able to see it, and the other thing that's good about, YouTube or whatever, I mean, there's obviously a lot of problems with YouTube and stuff, but we could put whatever we want on it. You know what I'm saying? We made it exactly the way we want. We had sort of talked a little bit about maybe trying to sell it to some place, but then you have to fit it into their brand and this and that. And it's like, we just want to put exactly what we made on the internet now. And so we're going to do that on YouTube, but we are hoping that it'll get, shared, and a lot of people will watch it. This series, there's 2 other videos that we're going to finish and release after, sort of like bonus episodes or whatever. I have another video. I don't know if you've seen, I made a video about train hopping. And I have another video where I went train hopping and I filmed it, and that was like last May, and I've been itching to edit that. So I want to edit that afterwards and get that out. And that's sort of like a travel log, of me hopping a train from up here down south. And then it's possible. I was thinking about maybe doing something similar for retail in New York. It's especially now with the pandemic. I mean, there's all these empty storefronts. But even before the pandemic, it's just like I live in Williamsburg, but I'm actually about to move. I'm actually moving into a rent stabilized apartment myself. I kind of lucked out. I had a friend, so I'm moving into the city. But I've been in Williamsburg for like 10 years or something like that. And it's like you'll see a store closed down. You're like, oh man, I like that restaurant or that store. And then it's vacant for literally years. It's the same in the city, Greenwich Village, everywhere. And it's like, again, it's like I just was riding my bike and they're opening up like a Swiss chocolate fucking store. Sorry if I don't know if I'm allowed to curse. They just opened up like a Swiss chocolate store, or not Swiss, Danish or something. And like, I'm sure that's great, but like, I want a laundromat. Just put a freaking laundromat. The closest laundromat is 4 blocks away. There was one on my block, but they closed because of the pandemic. It's like, we need basic services. And like Williamsburg and other neighborhoods, they're expensive malls for tourists. You know what I'm saying? It's like, Danish chocolate is great, but we also need basic freaking things that are just affordable for everyone, you know? Even if you can afford, you know, some of these places, I feel like the whole point of living in a city or living anywhere is you want your local bakery, butcher, whatever. You need these things. You know what I'm saying? So that also enrages me about like that. Why are these people able to sit on these vacant storefronts and not rent it out? It's like, to me, I'm just like, I don't care if you own it. It doesn't matter anymore. It's like the city. I don't know what happened with the vacancy tax with de Blasio said he was going to do that, but it's just like they hold these places hostage, and they should be forced, or the city should take some of these places over by eminent domain or something to incentivize them to actually open them up to ideally small independent businesses or something, you know? So maybe that would be the video. I don't know.